Hey friends, hey Logic listeners, hope y'all are having a great day today. I'm not, mostly because I've been working on this video so long, front-loading this video right now. We are taking some time today to examine a video by Chen, a popular conservative commentator, and it is a video in her series, Pseudo-Intellectual, which is her program on The Blaze, a popular conservative network, and Pseudo-Intellectual explores, I guess, just media, society, and politics, whole bunch of fascinating stuff. It is actually an interesting series. I wouldn't recommend it unless you have a stomach for nonsense, but it is a fascinating series. I have seen a couple of segments, but today's video, the rest of this video, you're gonna see me getting very angry because, oh my goodness. So yesterday, a video went up on The Blaze that was Chen talking about Teen Vogue and sharing her disdain for teenage magazines that have gotten, at the very least in her eyes and in the eyes of a lot of other people, increasingly political. And I'm gonna say that they've gotten, like, they've definitely taken to publicizing their political stuff a lot more aggressively than before, but I don't know if it's true that they've actually gotten more political or if it's just that they're letting more and more people see their political sides. Not entirely sure, but specifically the thing that we are going to be discussing is Lauren's response to an article that was published on Teen Vogue that shares how it is that people can get an abortion without their parents knowing. And I understand that for a lot of people that's going to have a visceral reaction. I understand that that's going to provoke strong feelings in people who don't actually think about the various reasons why it is that people might get an abortion, why it is that young people who are still living with their parents or college students who are living with their parents might get an abortion without their family members knowing, but we do need to be compassionate. That said, let's get right on into the video, and for the rest of the video, you're going to see me sitting in a different location. That's because I pre-recorded that part and I just did the front-loading when I had already finished filming.
Most recently, and in my opinion, upsettingly, there is this piece as well. Just a few days ago, Teen Vogue released this article, which detailed how to get an abortion if you're a teen without your parents knowing.
Thank you, Nona. Nona is the author of Down to Find Out, which is a series on Teen Vogue that answers important questions about sex education and about different things related to sexual activity. And Nona boldly decided to answer this question, gave an in-depth and excellent answer to it. And it was, in fact, a question which that little segment doesn't really acknowledge. This is part of questions and answers. It's part of an answers column. And understanding all of that stuff might seem like minor stuff, but it's important for people to understand that this article didn't just come out of the blue. And it's also important, and we should all be thanking Nona. That's the real tea. Nona is doing something that's good by helping this teen. And by not letting this teen, the person who asked the question, just sit in the dark. And Lauren doesn't do that, obviously. And Lauren should have. It was the right thing to do, and it was almost certainly a difficult decision, not just for Nona, but also for Teen Vogue. And Teen Vogue did the right thing by publishing this article. That's the short and sweet of it. Now let's get back into the video.
I honestly find it really hard to defend what the West has become.
I am somewhat hesitant to talk about things like dog whistles, but whenever I hear someone say the West in this tone, I'm inclined to think that they're using the term the West as a dog whistle, because the West is not Europe. Guys, Europe is not the West. The Americas are the West. And the Americas are filled with a lot of bad stuff. The Americas are filled with things like Fox News, The Blaze, abortion bans in places like Honduras and El Salvador. That stuff is hard to defend, but what isn't hard to defend is a compassionate writer for Teen Vogue recognizing that a teenager who was scared and who felt alone deserved an answer to their very real question that other people, including people younger than that teenager, have had to struggle with. That is easy to defend, and the fact that Lauren finds it hard to defend, that is despicable.
Sometimes, just on principle, I think right now a crusade may be exactly what we need. Even if you are pro-choice, you've got to admit there's an issue of being age appropriate that has gone out the window here.
We all know that I don't believe in God, but if God's real, I'm about to say something that God has undoubtedly thought a lot. Lauren is wrong. The idea that there is an argument to be made against the existence of this article on the basis of Teen Vogue's young audience is nonsense. The idea that young people don't need abortions, the idea that young people don't need sexual reproductive health and sexual reproductive justice is complete and utter nonsense. And if anything, this is one of the reasons why I was moved to make a video speaking out against what Lauren said here, because it's reprehensible. Not just the nonsense that she says about the possibility of maybe needing a crusade, but also this very specific argument that because Teen Vogue's audience leans young, they shouldn't be exposed to this sort of content. The reality is, it's partially because Teen Vogue's audience is so young that they might need this sort of content. They are some of the people who are most at risk when we decide to pass blanket abortion bans, when we decide to try and police reproductive health. Those are the people who are negatively affected, not just adults. It's people of all ages, Lauren, and that's part of the reason why it is that it's not just me who is speaking out against you, it's tons of people, especially about this nonsense. You are wrong, and the things that you're saying here are dangerous. They're going to cause people to get hurt. It's bad.
This is the kind of material that today's young women are growing up with. And if this is what they're reading when they're 15 or 16, what do you think they're going to be like in their 20s or their 30s?
I'll tell you exactly what I think they'll be like, Lauren. I think they'll be compassionate, intelligent people who care about other human beings and who don't blame feminists and secularists for the rise of policies that they don't like. They're going to be compassionate people who actually care about other human beings and who don't judge them and who recognize the complex realities of what life is like for young people. That's what they'll be like.
This is why we can't ignore the issue of culture or outlets like Teen Vogue. Do you really think that any girl who grows up reading this filth when she turns 18 is gonna cast a vote for a Republican or any conservative? Of course not.
Why do you have to be so nakedly partisan? It's disgusting. Because the reality is, I would hope that I would cast a vote for a Republican if a Republican was being compassionate and was caring about people in need. I would hope that I wouldn't be so blinded by the idea of party over nation or party over truth that if there was a conservative candidate who was better than a Democratic candidate or a leftist candidate, I would hope that I would be able to view the bigger picture and understand that for the sake of not just myself, but people who might be in need, that it is better for me to cast a vote for that candidate than for a candidate from my own party. What you are appealing for here is the idea of party over truth, party over compassion, and party over kindness. And it's a problem. And I would hope that after framing it this way, you would be able to listen to people like me who criticize you, and you would be able to do some self-reflecting and learn and think about what it is that drives you to be so openly, aggressively, and disturbingly partisan.
And actually, the question of being age appropriate is the other issue I have with Teen Vogue. You know what? Parrot your lefty progressive talking points all you want. That's one thing. But when you start giving tips for anal sex to teens who still don't know how to tell their crush that they like them, that's where you've absolutely lost me.
Teen Vogue are the good guys in this story. Point blank. That's just the truth. I understand that it's going to make some people uncomfortable that teenagers are having sex, but the reality is, with or without those articles, teenagers are going to have sex. Teen Vogue understands this, and they understand that it's better for those teenagers to have safe sex, to know what they're doing, to understand why it is that they're feeling the way they're feeling. For anyone who is curious, I'm going to link the article that Lauren is indirectly referencing in the description. It was earlier on in the full video. In my full video, I had a more in-depth response to what she was saying, but the article is not just aimed at little girls, it's not just aimed at teen girls, it's aimed at people of a variety of ages and of a variety of genders and sexual orientations. And the reality is that Teen Vogue, or at the very least Teen Vogue's writers, understand that sexual urges and sexual desires are real, and that young people are going to act on them. And they believe, or at the very least the writers believe, that it is better for those teens and for those young people to have the knowledge. And not just those teens and young people, but people who are considering having anal sex for the first time, of a wide variety of ages. We all understand that the real world is complex and that people are going to make moves with or without knowledge. So we've decided that it's better for people to have knowledge than to not have it. And if that's a problem that you have, then you need to do some serious reflecting. You need to think about what drives you and what is urging you to create the sort of content that you're creating. Because I've said it before and I'll say it again, your point of view on this issue is dangerous. You do not understand the realities. Either that or you're worse, you're actively ignoring the realities that teenagers are going to have sex one way or another. Teenagers are going to need things like abortion. And some teenagers are lucky enough to have families that accept them and that love them and will continue to accept and love them, even if they have an abortion, even if they make it known. But lots of teenagers aren't. And even more teenagers don't know, and they don't want to take the risk. And that is an understandable reaction in a moment of fear, in a moment of concern, and in a moment of anxiety.
Yep, you've got it right. That anal sex article, and I cannot believe how many times in this video I've had to say anal sex. Goodbye any hope of monetization. That's not the only time that Teen Vogue has been, if you ask me, grossly inappropriate. They've also written about when it's safe to send a partner nude photos, an all-inclusive vibrator gift guide to, you know, give the gift of self-pleasure, and how orgasms may cause health problems, doctors say. Oh yeah, and of course there was also the article of what to do if your partner doesn't want to go down on you. In case, you know, that crush that you liked you back, but now doesn't want to reciprocate. Just typical schoolyard problems.
I have absolutely no idea what sort of a life Lauren led as a teenager, but I can tell you, as a teenager who was raised in multiple states and in multiple different countries, those things that Teen Vogue was sharing right now, those articles that Lauren flashed across the screen, those are articles that are reflective of real concerns that actual human teenagers in the West, and yes, this is all the West, not Europe, but the Americas, in the West actually have. I have friends who were asking me questions about sending nude pictures when I was in high school and they were in high school in Honduras, in Georgia, in North Carolina. These are things that actual teenagers have conversations about. There are teenagers that are going to have sex toys and that they're going to use those sex toys to help them have an orgasm and to help them experience masturbation in pleasurable and safe ways. And that's just the truth. And the fact that Lauren can't accept this, the fact that Lauren is so grossed out by this, it's weirdly telling. It's weirdly telling about what the world she envisions is and just how separated from reality that world actually is.
I've talked about this before, but the progressive left is smart, or should I say devious. By and large, they may not be having kids of their own, but they're sure as heck going after yours. This garbage is what they're exposing your kids to at school, in movies and music, in magazines. It's everywhere. Younger generations aren't more progressive because that's just the accurate way of seeing the world. They're more progressive because they've been indoctrinated to be that way.
We are not La Llorona, okay? We are not going after your kids. We are people who remember what it was like to be teenagers, and we understand that today's teenagers have similar and often amplified problems, because when I was a teenager, social media was just starting, and When I was a teenager, cell phones were a lot less advanced than they are now. I can only imagine just a little bit of how hard it must be to be a teenager in 2019. And articles like content created by Teen Vogue are very helpful. They're very useful. And they're written by people who understand that the experiences of teenagers now, the questions that teenagers have now, are often similar to the questions that they themselves had, but often more direct, often more amplified. And it's important that there be resources out there that are real, that are honest, and that are respectful of the experiences of teenagers, and understand that teenagers experiment sexually, teenagers get pregnant, teenagers masturbate. And I understand that all of this stuff is uncomfortable to a lot of people, but that doesn't change the truth that this is what the world is like. And frankly, for so many people, this is what the world was like when we were teenagers. I don't understand why we have to pretend that our teenage years were so different than teenage years of teenagers now. I think that the problems that a lot of teenagers have are often amplified problems compared to the problems that some of us had when we were teenagers.
My advice to everyone watching this, whether you're a parent now or you hope to be a parent in the future, is to be vigilant in monitoring the type of materials that your child is exposed to. And to any progressives who might be watching this saying, oh, so you're just trying to indoctrinate your child and shield them from any outside influences? No, I'm trying to prevent the indoctrination.
That's exactly what you're doing, Lauren. And the reality is, it not only won't work, it'll make life harder for the parents who ignorantly decide to listen to this and take it seriously and do what you're saying. Because the reality is, just because a kid doesn't have a Teen Vogue magazine doesn't mean that they're not going to have anal sex. Just because a child couldn't read an article about safe ways and about easier ways to try and have access to reproductive health care without their parents knowing doesn't mean that that child's not going to try to get an abortion. What you're doing is you're making life more dangerous for young people, and you're also turning parents against something that could actually help their kids just because you don't like it politically. It's bad and it's wrong, and what you're doing here is being nefarious, and it's ultimately going to hurt people, and I hope you reflect on that.
I plan on teaching my kids about all types of political ideologies and exposing them to a variety of sources. I really do. I just wouldn't want my 14-year-olds being told about the best types of vibrators to buy or the best ways to meet up with random migrants, and maybe that makes me a bad progressive, but it sure as heck wouldn't make me a bad mother. But in any case, those are just my thoughts about Teen Vogue, and I would love to know what you guys think. Am I overreacting to this? And when did teen magazines change so gosh darn much? As always, let me know, but that's it for now. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.
You want to know my thoughts, Lauren? My thoughts are that this whole ridiculous diatribe against Teen Vogue was in fact overreacting, but it was also a way for you to generate outrage. And it was a way for you to, and I'm not saying that you're being untruthful in your reactions. I think that you are telling the truth. I do think that you are in fact this bigoted. I do think that you are in fact this ignorant about all of these things. I think that you're telling the truth. I just also think that you are generating outrage and you're generating clicks. And all of those things are true at the same time. I'm not calling you a liar, but I am calling you wrong. And you are. And the fact of the matter is, one, this isn't going to affect Teen Vogue in any particular way. The people who watch your content, one, they aren't Teen Vogue's main audience, and somehow I doubt that those of them who are parents would have already let their kids read Teen Vogue. I don't think that anyone is actually going to be like, oh no, my daughter was going to get Teen Vogue for her birthday, but I guess not. If we go to Barnes & Noble, she better not be reading that darn Teen Vogue. That's just not true. Your audience doesn't strike me as the sort of audience that would allow their kids to do that. And also, the one thing that I do think that you're lying about is I do not believe for 1 second you're actually going to expose your kid to a wide range of different outlets, different sources, and different information. I think that your kids are probably going to get that, but I don't think it's going to be because you willfully expose them to it. Partially because you use words like expose, and also because you do things like blame feminists and secularists for the rise of progressivism. So you don't strike me as the sort to actually go out of your way to read different sources. Lauren has an annoying, condescending attitude towards teenagers and towards parents as well. And this is common among some conservatives, not among every conservative. I'm not gonna, paint with too broad a brush here. But this is a fairly common thing that I have noticed among some conservative commentators. And it sucks because I'm going to state that I think Lauren is doing her best. I think that her best is comically bad and ignorant, but I do think that she is being genuine in her feelings. I think that her feelings are overly partisan and come from a hateful place, but I do think that she is being genuine in some of the stuff that she says. I think that she does actually believe the things that she says, and I don't think that she's acting in bad faith. It's just that her acting in good faith is honestly kind of worse than her acting in bad faith would be. It's worth responding to this video, and it's worth taking the time to tackle it because it is so dangerous. And it's so dangerous because it ignores the realities of life for teenagers. It ignores the realities that teenagers are going to have sex. It ignores the realities that teenagers are activists and want to become better activists. It ignores the realities that teenagers are going to need reproductive health care, and abortion is in fact part of that. And I know that saying that will annoy some conservatives, but that doesn't change the fact that it's true. Facts don't care about your feelings, and they definitely don't care about hers. And I know that using that is going to surprise some people, but the reality is that saying in and of itself is true. And the idea that it's conservatives who get to honestly state that is categorically untrue. Lots of conservative policies come from a place of feelings over facts. And it's high time that more people start to tackle them aggressively, dynamically, and openly about that, which is one of the things that I want to do. So I'm going to end this video by saying that Teen Vogue are not only the good guys here, they're doing stuff that's important. They're providing public goods, and they're doing things that are morally correct in publishing articles that talk about the topics that they talk about. They recognize the complex realities that teenagers are politically active, that teenagers are politically engaged, that teenagers are exploring their sexualities and will have sex, and also that abortion isn't limited to people who are over 18 and to people who are financially independent and out of their parents' house. That's just the truth. The people who are going to need abortions, the people who are going to want to get abortions, are not just folks who are adults. It's not just grown people who have jobs. It's people from all over, of a wide variety of ages, who need and who deserve abortions. And abortion providers are doing good work. I'm going to go as far as to state that I am pro-abortion, and that that's an important and positive position, and that that position is, in and of itself, pro-life. And it's pro-life in a far more meaningful way than someone like Lauren could ever hope to be. Little Miss, oh, I think that a crusade might be exactly what we need. Get out of here with that nonsense. Jesus. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. This is undoubtedly going to be a fun video to see the like to dislike ratio of.